It's good. Okay, so welcome to social psychology, which is a hefty portion of the test. I mean, it's not like something where it's like half the test, but there are, the biggest portions are like 10 and 12%. I think cognition is right at like 12%. Social psychology is at 10%. Research methods, even though according to College Board it says 8%, the last AP like instructor conference I went to, like the writers of the test are like directing the room, and they're all like, we really like research methods a lot, and we're all like, okay, so mental of the self, even though it's only 8% of the test, they like it a lot, which means it's probably going to, the 8% will be like the other type of thing. So that's my guess, but let's get into social psychology. So attribution theory, there's two terms here, attribution theory and the fundamental attribution error. They kind of go hand in hand. The attribution theory says, like, when we're talking about others, we're either talking about the personality, or we're talking about like their external situation. The error is when we focus heavier on one, heavier on one, and not enough on the other. So the situational factors, it could be like their scenario that they're in, their like life right now, their environment, things like that. While the personal disposition is basically their personality, and that's just who they are. And the error that we make is when we tend to overestimate, like, how much of their behavior, like we say, it's who they are. And we forget, we underestimate the environment that we're in. I underestimate, like, and it's something that teachers do a lot. Like when you guys might, like, sleeping, like, goes off in class for a split second, or if you, like, aren't committed tutoring. Teachers, me, I have a problem with this. Jenny, you're okay? Yeah. Okay, that right there is a perfect example. I might look at Jenny and be like, she has her head in her hands. She looks absolutely like she's in pain. I'm assuming she's just lazy and bored and rude. But then I'm like, I forget that y'all are under stress. AP testing time is some of the most stressful time in high school. Also your ESCs. Oh, don't forget finals. And then it's just all like, and if you're a junior, all of this is still going towards your GPA. So I understand all of that, but I'm forgetting that all the time. When you come to tutoring, I just assume that they're lazy. I forget that a lot of people, like, they take the bus, or they have dogs, or they're on a team that meets every single day and they can't get out. I forget that. I forget about the environment they're in, and I tend to be like, well, they're just lazy, or they're apathetic, or they just, they don't care about their job, or whatever, and I take personal offense. And that's a problem. That's the fundamental attribution error, an FAE, fundamental attribution error. So the theory is that we attribute situational factors of personality, and the error is that we over... Oh, yes. Yes, over attribute personality. Okay, so are we at the beginning of this pack or at the end? It's like the last. It's like, yeah. Usually social psychology is taught last. In most psychology classes, it's taught last.
It's like the title and then the information starts on the next.
Oh, you're right. Oh, that's awful. Oh, yeah, I would redo the title. Okay. So it is opposite and explain our own behaviors. Anyone remember when we were talking about our own behavior, we overestimate, I'm not rude, I'm just tired. I overestimate the situation and I underestimate my own internal disposition. Self-serving bias. Don't y'all hold this up? 1 second. So that's self-serving bias. Have we done this? Have we done social psych before?
I have a couple things. I think I was just in class and everything.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. I've been highlighting, and then I'll let me take highlight on the end page. Okay, so self-serving bias is not only the opposite of the fundamental attribution error, we're talking about ourselves, it's also just when you take credit for your successes, and you like don't take credit for your failures. So when you get a 5 on a test, on the AP whatever test, let's say you take like 5 tests, and you get a 5 on one, you say, that's because I'm awesome. But if you get a 2 on the others, you're like, well, I wasn't prepared enough. And so you take credit for your successes, but you don't take credit for your failures. Like you are like, someone else. But when you do well, you're just awesome. Maybe the credits do someone else. Maybe. Okay, and so individualistic cultures. This is like kind of like the social perspective, the social cultural perspective, kind of sprinkled down through here. Individualistic cultures like the United States are more likely to commit the attribution error and the self-serving bias than collectivist cultures. Like Americans and Europeans are much more likely to make these two errors of taking credit for my successes, and I'm just, if I'm grouchy, I'm not mean, I'm just tired, but then other people, we do this a whole lot more than collectivist cultures. Collectivist cultures are more likely to keep things in balance. They're more likely to take credit for the successes and failures, and they're more likely to be like, well, maybe Jenny just has a headache instead of her being like, whatever. Jenny has a headache. Have you had enough water today?
Yeah.
Okay. That's always what you do first when you have a headache. Drink water. Okay. So, an attitude is just basically a set of beliefs. It doesn't say set anymore, but it's a set of beliefs, feelings, or things towards a particular object or something. Towards something, a belief about something. That's what an attitude is. You can change people's attitudes by doing the face or facing the door. So, what I said, face the door. Wow. Okay, sorry. I mean, yes, but no. What? Why? Does he put his face in the door?
He has before.
Oh, that's true. That's true in our tutoring where he like creepily like went open the window. Christina, give me an example of foot in the door. Hold on. Give some time to think. Foot in the door. Okay, Christina, anytime. Foot in the door.
When you're like more awkward, wait, never mind.
Okay.
No, can you tell me after that?
No.
It's like little and then just a lot.
Oh, yes. Okay, so give me an example.
Remember the voting one with the yard sale, with the yard posters?
You're doing it right over.
Literally, $5 and
Okay. That's not. No, it's not. Okay.
Okay, you
Instead of
like
count $10 to around food.
Yeah, granola bar's not that big of a deal. Here's a granola bar. If I say yes to something small, I'm more likely to say yes to something big. It's basically how do you like wiggle your way in. I always think of someone slamming the door. It's like, I'm not going to give you any money. And then you put your foot in the door, you're like, how about 50 cents for like a drink from the vending machine? And then they're like, okay, 50 cents. So like, well, I really want to drink all water, and that's 75 cents. Okay, here's 75 cents. But I'm thirsty and hungry. Can I have more money? And so you just start small, and then you wiggle right back in. All of a sudden, you've got all the money. But door in the face is what, Andrea? Yeah, thank you. Something you know they're going to say no to. So when you ask for something small, it seems much more reasonable, and they're more willing to say yes. If you had to pick which one works best, which one do you think? For the door. For the door works best. For the door works best. Okay, confidence is also about beliefs, but it's about your beliefs not matching what? Your actions. Your actions. Cognitive dissonance. And what you do is you modify your belief. If you're going to change anything, you're not going to change how you act, you're going to change how you feel. And therefore, there's no dissonance anymore. So you're going to have dissonance if you have some sort of like conflict. If you're like, smoking's not that bad and you smoke, there's no dissonance then. There's no conflict. But if you're like, I'm a doctor and I know what smoking does to you, yet I smoke anyway, there's going to be some dissonance. Dissonance is conflict. It is clashing. clashing between like beliefs. I don't want to say beliefs. I want to write the word attitudes since that's what we're talking about. Attitudes. Like they don't match your actions. And therefore, how do you justify it to yourself by changing what you believe in? I actually was listening to a podcast yesterday that it accidentally was about cognitive dissonance. And it was really interesting. I'm going to use this example for like the rest of my teaching. And it was, they were going down a list of things that cause conflict in people's lives. And which is a big part of cognitive dissonance is that there's some sort of clashing, some sort of conflict. And there was like a 10-minute little clip about he's a pastor, but he's in the military. And he's like, there's like a military pastor, whatever. And he's like, I teach, thou shalt not kill. But I'm in the military. We're stationed in Afghanistan. He's like, we shoot people and kill people all the time. And I'm a pastor. And he's like, I lie awake at night wondering, am I breaking the very rule? He's like, I know I am. So he's like, I can't sleep. And he's like, the military guys are like, I'm Christian, I'm Jewish, I'm Muslim, whatever. Like, they all believe in the 10 Commandments. And so it's like, thou shalt not kill is in each of those religions. Yet, if you're in the military and you're Christian, you're literally breaking a commandment as your job. And so it's like, how do you have, so what do people do?
Well, like most wars have been started because of a religious like clash or like ethnic clash.
Yes.
And then yet still, because like religions say like you defend your religion. That's your job as a religious person.
But which one of those defend your religion? Which commandment is that? None of them.
I know, that's the thing about it.
So it's like, if those are the big rules, and like defend your faith is like was not big enough to make the list. These are the ones that made the list, and I'm choosing not to do that by this minor rule over here. It's like that was the clash. And so the guy was like, we're justifying it because it's, you know, in the Bible there were wars. And well, in the Bible there's lots of things. But in the Bible there's like, you know, straight up murder. Doesn't mean good. And so I was like, that was just really interesting. I'm like, oh, you know, people that are like, I've never thought of that. I'm like, you're right. It's just like, how do you sleep at night? And they do sleep at night. They just change what they feel. I'm not murdering. I'm protecting my life. Or I am, what's the other commandment? Justified. I'm not murdering them on Sunday. I don't know. Like, keep this out of I'm just trying to think of like, honor thy father and mother. My father wants me to be in the military. Therefore, I'm honoring them. And I don't know. The guy basically ended on the note of like, I don't know how to answer the question. He's like, I lay awake at night, wondering what I'm doing. And he's like, yeah, that's tough. Yeah, it is tough. And so, in changing behavior, so you typically don't change behavior, you change your attitudes, but you can change your behavior to change your thoughts. Does anyone remember which famous study changed people's behavior and therefore changed how people's attitude? Oh, I can tell it in my tongue. I know this. Say, I'm going to make you behave in a certain way.
Is it the jail one?
Yes, it is the jail one. Who? Zimbardo. This is the idea of role playing. Okay, this should be the very next one. No, just kidding. Okay, so changing. So like that was the idea of like if when our actions don't match up, we typically change our attitude. What happens if I make you change your actions? And so then, you know, those guards were given the guard uniform and their attitude became more sadistic. The prisoners, they were given prison uniforms and their behavior became more passive and more like introverted and quiet. Okay, so like Philip Zimbardo was all about, okay, I'm going to go to the next slide. I'm not going to. So like, I watched the movie, and that's Zimbardo, and it's all like, when if you make them, by playing a different role, you make people's like actions like a certain way, their attitudes will follow. What they believe will catch up. You will eventually, I think of like Mean Girls. Like what Katie or Caddy or whatever her name is. Katie was like gonna play. I'm gonna pretend to be a plastic, and then she goes and then she's like, and eventually she's not pretending anymore. That's who she is. She just became one of the popular girls, even though she started making fun of them. She became the person that she is. And so, make people's actions do something, whatever that is. Attitude will change. Yes, force actions will change attitudes. That's much better than what I'm reading. Yeah, that. Yeah. Mine's like, oh, you don't speak like English correctly. I sound like a caveman. Hey, people actually do something. Attitude change. It's all like swing from trees. Smash rock together. Okay. Yeah. Technically, no. Holographic speech is being one word. That would be like attitudes. It's like, but telegraphic is telegraph. Yeah, so telegraph is like, back in the olden time, you had to like write a telegraph. You had to pay per word, and so that's why, so that's why people would not take out like the is and the be. It'd be like, Mom's sick, come home now. May dead. Die. Yeah, I guess die is shorter of a word than dead. But it was not like, hey, mother is fallen ill with the whatever. I mean, they're like, Mom dead. Come home now. Okay, so social facilitation, social ambition. I think we said social facilitation today in class. I think most of my classes today are the boxes. I forget, maybe one class did not. But it was social facilitation and social ambition is always in the presence of a group. You're not part of the group, but a group is watching you. You are in the presence of a group. You are not part of it. They are just watching. And so if it is a well-learned task, Barbara, what's something you do well? Track. Do you run faster when there's like an audience? Yes. Because it's a well-learned task. If it was your very first day doing track, probably not so much. You'd be nervous, you'd fall over, you do like the hurdles and like eat it. But if it's a well-learned task, then the group watching makes it better. So social facilitation is for well-learned tasks, like you know how to do it really well, you're very good at it, and you do better in front of a group. Ryan, what's something you do poorly? Are you in Spanish?
No.
Are you in German, French?
No.
Okay, so that's an answer. So if we're going to ask you, like, okay, come to the front of the class and introduce yourself in both French, German, and English, and tell us what you did this weekend in a foreign language. Do you think you do all that well?
No.
Definitely not, especially with people watching you. Maybe at home by yourself in front of your mirror, you could like put a sentence together like May01. Tango 18 años. But like in the presence of a group, if it's not well learned, it's like a brand new task. If it's not learned task, you're going to do very poorly. Yeah.
That's the equivalent to social impairment.
Oh, is that what it says? Oh, it says social impairment. I have seen inhibition more often than I've seen impairment. But if they're putting that right next to social facilitation, where are we at?
13.
Yes, yes. They're just using that as a synonym. So impairment and that word. There we go. Is going to be a synonym. Okay. Oh, look at me. I already wrote it down. For the learning task. Okay. Social loafing. This is now you are in a group. You are part of it. You're, I don't know, let's say that you are writing a paper as a group. Maybe it's due tonight around midnight. You will exert less effort in a group because you think the other part of the group, whoever that other part is, you think the other part of the group will do it, and so you exert less effort. Where is that?
22.
Holy crap. It is out of order. Yes. Social loafing individuals will not put in as much effort when acting as part of the group. Those other two words, social facilitation, social inhibition, you're not part of the group. Your group is watching you. Now you're part of it. Social loafing, you're going to exert less effort. So, Patricio, look like a loaf.
Jay. Oh, that was Jay.
Was that Jay?
Yeah, he was all like,
Jay was a good loafer. I always think of when people admit like loafing. Yeah. Loaf. Yeah. Just all like, yeah. You're just loafing around. And so, you're just exerting no effort and you're just a loafer. You're just sitting there. Okay. De-individuation looks like it's right next down. I like this term, loss of self-awareness and self-restraint. I remember a few FRQs ago, like year-wise, it wasn't last year, I don't know if it was the year before, but it might have been the year before that. De-individuation was an FRQ bullet point, where it was all like, Andrea goes to a pep rally. How will these terms affect her in the pep rally? And some of it was like selective attention, and so you have to she couldn't hear the trombone in the band, whatever. And whatever. But one of them was the individuation. And a lot of people said in the rubric, a lot of people wrote in their essay, it did not count. They said, well, they feel, they do things they normally wouldn't do. The question is why? A lot of these things, you exerting less effort in a group, it might not something you might not always do, but you have to basically define it. Don't just she might paint her face different colors for the pep rally. And that's normally what she wouldn't do. The reason because she wouldn't do that is because she's losing her self-restraint, or she's feeling anonymous, or she's losing her self-awareness. So make sure you are specific when it comes to these definitions of don't just say, oh, that's going to affect them to see or something. Well, it's because that's the part of the eye that helps see. So that's why she can't see. So remember the application definition. So she did something she normally wouldn't do. Yeah, and then example, that's an application. But why? Because she lost self-restraint. Think of it also as the mob mentality. People typically don't set fires to cars, but your team won the championship. And you feel like no one knows you here, and you lose your self-restraint, you get caught up in the moment, and you Molotov cocktail. Yeah, really proud of that. Yes, and my husband was like, oh, now you finally know what it's like. It's like being from Michigan, because every time Michigan State does anything, they set the town on fire.
She had a t-shirt that she wore, and she was
I'm
wearing it because it made me feel it.
Yes, and she didn't care that much.
Yeah.
Mr. Beercant gave her the shirt because he went to the rival school, Michigan, and so
because I was like, oh, are you going to
No.
Michigan? She's like, no, I just wear it because
it's just expensive. Which half of me is all like, don't upset my man. But then the half is all like, no, dude, it's kind of funny. Why is it on that? Okay. So the story with Kitty, the story with Kitty and her being stabbed in the alleyway. What type of research method is Kitty?
Case study.
That's a case study. So rare things that you never want to repeat. Okay, think of it. Those would be like experiment today.
Did it say never want to repeat?
Oh my God. Do you want okay?
I thought it said something that was rare.
Yes. Rare occurrences that you can't repeat. Whether it's unethical, like with Kitty.
Okay.
It didn't say the problem. But case studies, it's either you can't repeat this because it's unethical, or you can't repeat this because it's so rare. How would you have an independent and dependent variable control group, experimental group? How would you do that?
You should have put unethical or something like that in the question. And then I was like,
Because
oh,
that was an AP question. It was from a release test. Okay. Yes, bystander effect. People are less likely to assist. The more people that witness an incident of needing help, the less likely to assist. Does anyone know the? I don't think it's on here. I don't see it. Does anyone know the synonym for bystander effect? It's 3 words.
Yeah.
The second one is of. Something of something. What? Close. Diffusion. Yeah.
Oh, I have it.
Diffusion of responsibility. That is like no one feels responsible. Yeah, they feel like someone else is gonna do it. Just thinking. No, like I went to like the conference that I went to on last Thursday. We were sitting at like a table of it's just 4 of us from Tomball, and it's like every other school's there, but they've got like way more people. They've got like 30, and another group has like 50 people, but it's just 4 people from Tomball. And so like, who from Tomball wants to get up in the mic and like, and like, so the person hands just puts the microphone in the middle of the table, and we're all like equidistant from it. Like we're all a good 2 feet away. Me, Valiente, and 2 people from central office. And we're both all like, for everyone's like Valiente is kind of, I mean, he is just like, pick someone else.
You're talking to like,
No, like, but then because no one was moving, and it was a good solid like 10 seconds, which doesn't sound like a lot.
Oh, no,
But when someone's all like, speak, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I was all like, you have such a good speaking voice, you should do it. And then the person's like, and I'm like, it's like always a tremendous to speak. I hate speaking in the microphone. Okay, so before we move on, notice that there's 2 little bullet points underneath bystander effect. It says social exchange theory and reciprocity norm. Reciprocity norm is when you you help because someone like might help you. I'll give you the closing question answers if you tell me what's on the quiz today. Yeah.
so you tell us the expectation.
Yes, reciprocity. I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine. The social exchange theory is a very quick little pro-con list that we do in our head. Like you were driving by, someone just rear-ended someone, they're on the side of the road, and you're driving by, and you quickly do a little pro of helping, con of helping. And if the con, right, and if the con of helping exceeds the pro, you're gonna just keep on driving. Like pro of helping, oh, you be a good person. Con of helping, I have to stop. Or I talk to people, and I don't know anything, and look, I just said 3 things. I'm going on, that is way more than you're already past. I'm already past it. So, but it happens really quickly in our head.
It's like,
Yes.
Wait, I don't understand.
like you weigh
the good and the bad of helping. And if the good of helping, if the pros of helping outweigh the bad, then you're going to stop and help. Like if someone drops their book in the hallway, like there's probably more pros to helping than cons. Like it'll take a second, I'll look like a nice person, my hands are free, I can easily grab it, and the con is like, it might take time, I have to pen down. But then, I don't know, if it's like 2 seconds before the charging bell rings, then the cons of helping might outweigh the pros. So you might be like, sorry dude, if it was earlier, I would help you, but then you just book in the class. Yeah. There's always one kid in the hallway with like a really high backpack.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And then
They probably need a shower.
oh no, Gabby. Usually I say inappropriate things.
Sorry, I'll leave that.
Okay. Social responsibility norm is just people who will just like they are always, and I feel like there should be the word norm after this. Social responsibility norm sounds like it's a common thing, but there are these types of people that will go out of the way to just help. Like for them, the pros are like almost always outweighing the cons. And they just take it upon themselves because they feel like that person needs me. I have like, think of it like this. You're in an airplane, someone passes out in the airplane. They say, is there a doctor on board?
That's all the Grey's Anatomy episode.
Everything's on the Grey's Anatomy episode.
Yeah, they literally just go through like medical like journals, and they're like, that sounds interesting. What if there's a bomb instead? And they're like, that's the episode.
Like, theoretically, how does someone start with a bombing, a drowning, a shooting, an airplane crash?
Meredith has been dead the whole time.
Oh, yeah.
I like that.
That's all a dream.
Oh, I still watch it. It's on Hulu. So I watch Hulu just so I can watch Grey's Anatomy.
I'm not gonna look at that.
Oh my God. Okay.
No, one tomorrow.
The new episodes.
Oh.
Yeah. Like on Hulu, they like weekly they upload stuff.
Find your polarizations. And I'm here.
22B.
Wow. How are you? Okay.
It's already there.
Doesn't happen. This is all like everything.
Where?
22D.
22. D. Oh, wow. Okay. So it says the tendency of a group to make more extreme decisions than the group members would make individually. Why is that? What? Yes, KKK and church.
Because they have a common core belief.
Yes, and the belief gets stronger when they get together. When they get together, whatever the belief is, when they get together, it gets more stronger, and so they're more likely to make extreme decisions. That's kind of scary. Yeah. Like, what? It could be good. It could be like, we're gonna build like a whole bunch of like houses for the poor. Yay, houses! Or it's all like, we're a terrorist organization. Like it could be. It's either one of the other. No one that.
KKK and
Right. Like, what do they have in common? And then there's the idea of groupthink, which here it says,
that's the one with the like where no one eats it.
yes, it says the tendency for some groups to make a bad decision. Keep in mind, groupthink cannot lead to good. Group polarization could lead to good. It could be like, let's build some homes together. But groupthink is not good. It's when individuals don't speak up against the bad choice. Like, you want to go to lunch? Okay, let's go to lunch. Someone mentioned Chili's, and it's like, no.
You're gonna go on your Chili's.
Yes, I hate Chili's. No one gets a Chili's on
I
purpose.
hate Chili's.
Every
Every
time
time
I
I order something, it's
Yanni likes Chili's. Like Chili's.
I just say love their queso. I love their skillet queso. Like their skillet queso, it's had this argument.
It's on skillet.
No, it's just like, no,
It's like flatter.
no, it's a different color. It's like chili mixed in with queso. It's so good. That's the only thing.
Like chili con queso that you can get in any Mexican
No,
restaurant.
it's not yellow. It's
Yellow.
it's not. It's not yellow. Okay, this is
This is why. No, okay, Gianna. Okay, I'm gonna make you feel better and also test you on your psychology. This right here, me teasing you, is reaction formation. Do you remember what that is?
Nope.
Oh.
Forming a reaction.
No.
You like me because
Reaction formation is when you do something is the opposite of how you feel. So
Oh, yeah.
tease the people
Oh,
that you
it's
like.
kind of like when you pinch the guy.
Yes,
Right.
right. Yeah, shelter.
I like you with the baseball bat.
Okay, so where's Solomon Ash? Where's the
I'm
lines?
figuring it out. 15. This is
I'm just yes. Okay, Ash's studies. This was yes. This is all conformity, and there are two types of conformity. There's normative social influence and informational social influence. So on D and E, if you want to just title those like two types of conformity, two reasons why people conform. Two types are reasons why people conform. Either you are trying to get someone's approval. You want to feel like you want to be liked by them. You want their approval. You don't want to like stick out, and you want to look normal. So normative social influence is like you want to look normal. You want to fit in with the crowd. You want to get their approval. But informational, I saw this a whole bunch of times in today's little game. Whoever had the whiteboard felt like they had to say in the group. And it's all like, they have the whiteboard, and they have it, and it's all like, I think it's this. And they're like, well, I think it's something else. Or whatever. Yeah, and they're like, oh, okay, that's fine. And I'm like watching them, I'm like, you just can, like, what? They just said an answer without telling you any reason of their thinking. But you just went along with it. Because you assumed that they knew something that you didn't. Even though they didn't explain, oh, I think it's this because it's this other thing, and it could talk about it like this, and here's the
We
example.
didn't have time.
I know you didn't have time. But why would you just assume that they were right when you also had an answer?
Sometimes you just have to trust.
Yeah, but you are just assuming, and that's what informational social influence is. Your willingness to accept others' opinions about reality. This is the right answer, and you just assume, well, they must be right. They must know something that I don't know. They must have information that I don't have.
I saw this TV show once that was like, what would your kid do or whatever, and they were like 4-year-olds, and they were like in a group, and 2 of them like purposely had the wrong answer.
Yeah.
It was like, which one will help you see in the dark? And the answer was carrots, but they held up corn. And the kid was like, carrots, and he was like, what? No, corn. And then they asked him, why did you change it? Oh, I just changed my mind. But he saw. And he had it wrong. And they were like, you had it right before.
Right, yeah, I'll do that a lot. I see, and that's why, like,
Someone into people would be like, oh.
yeah. Like my AP Eco kids are going to take their mock test twice next week. They're going to take it once by themselves and then once with a friend. But I will not grade their first test before they take their second test, so they have no idea what they got right or wrong. But it's the same questions. You've seen it before, so you should be prepared. But then I have kids that will do worse on the second one with a friend because they are talked into a wrong answer by someone who they think, I guess, you must know more than me. And they can form their answer.
Like with group stuff, like now with group quizzes, it's like you don't want to be mean and be like,
Dude, it's your grade.
yeah.
Like, right. I'd rather be upset with you, like upset with me temporarily, but then we get it right, and then it's like, okay, you I got it right because I need to finish what I said. Like, yeah, oh, I love being right. Okay. So, what are some things that promote conformity? Some things that increase whether people so like Michelle just said, the kids raised their boards with their answer on it, was carrots or corn or whatever, and the kid conformed because he saw all the other answers, and all the other answers were unanimous. So if the group was a big group, like, you're not going to conform to 1 or 2 people, but maybe like 3 or 4. The bigger the group, the more likely to conform. And if the group is unanimous, meaning that everyone agrees. If there was another kid on that panel that held up carrots, the kid probably wouldn't have changed his answer. He'd be like, hey, at least someone agrees with me. I'm going to write carrots. But you guys are, like, I even saw hesitation today when it's like people were like, we're the only ones that have this on our board. And they're like, oh, they're almost using their board as a shield. And it's like, oh my gosh. And it's like, yeah, you're right, or something. And it's like, but when the group's really big and when the group is unanimous, the pressure to conform is big. And the characteristics of the majority. Do you want their opinion? Do you want their opinion of you to be good? Do you care what they think? Do you care what they think? I'm less likely to conform with like children than I am with like my bosses. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
And difficulty of the task. You know what's crazy is that the more difficult the task, the more likely you guys are to conform. If it was,
You're just like, all right.
yes, and like you definitely don't want to stick out. Another podcast. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts. Another podcast that I listened to was this guy, and like 13 years ago, he was on a jury, and this 18-year-old kid robbed a store or something, shot the guy, and the guy died. So he was in court for murder, and he was on the jury, and he's like, the entire time I felt like it shouldn't have been murder, it should have been like manslaughter or something, manslaughter, you get, 10, 15 years in prison, and then you're out, right, with parole. But he's like, I don't want to say anything. And he was the youngest. He was 18 on the jury. Everyone else was like 40, 50 years old. And so he's like, these people, they're older than me, they probably know more than me. And he's like, I'm going to conform, I'm going to go along with them and say that he's guilty. And he said that guilt of him conforming and not saying something.
Well, the fact that you think, you're thinking about it like after time and later, you're like, I could have done.
Right, I could have done something. And the story was him, like, how his life completely unraveled after that. Like, the guilt of this conformity, it led him to drinking. He got married, but his drinking became such a problem. And he would just, like, shut himself away in his room for, like, days, and then he got divorced. He lost his job because of his drinking, because he was so guilty. And then he finally, like, somehow contacted the mother of the guy he put in prison. And was like, I'm sorry, I should have said something. And he goes,
Well, just in the high jury, then it was just
no, but
the trial.
it wouldn't have. When it's a murder trial, you can't, something about the sentencing. You can have a split thing, so where you have a new one, not for the entire case, but now for sentencing. Anyway, but now laws have been put into place because of his guilt that will stop that. Like, you have the ability now to say something discreetly and anonymously to, like, the group without, so you can feel like you can break the rules of conformity. So his guilt and his, like, story changed, like, courtroom law, which is kind of interesting. And he is no longer a drinker anymore. And the mom of the guy who was in prison, like, forgave him. She's like, you didn't know what you were doing. You were 18 years old. I would have done the same thing. I would have conformed to these adults.
Because I get killed from most too.
Yeah, but it was like, oh, I need money. And like, bang. And it's like, is that murder?
Yes.
The question is, like, it's all about, like, we talked about, like, aggression. Was there intent to
You
kill?
bought a gun.
True, but
As murder.
He brought a loaded gun too. Frequently they bring unloaded.
And the safety was off, obviously.
but think about how smart your 18-year-old friends are. Think about other good choices. Oh, no. You're not trying. Okay. So we talked about tomorrow already. I was just doing my job. We talked about roles. We talked about, we have to talk about OP. Stanley Holgram. Shocking Stanley. What percentage of people went all the way?
A lot.
Like
66.
66%. Where is that?
16.
Yes, 16. Oh, yeah. Stanley Holgram. Okay, so it says, reveal the number of people with authority figures. And if you remember, the experiment was, the experiment requires that you continue. Okay, so here's the thing. I am shocking Ryan. And Gracie is the one telling me that I must continue. What are some things about this that would make me more likely to listen and follow orders?
Brian behaving bad.
Well, remember, he's like in a different room.
If you're.
Okay,
Well, you won't tell them.
boss, or what about, like, even if it's something like she's wearing a white lab coat, and she was on, like, jeans and, like flip-flops, and she's like, hey, you need to continue. You're like, no, no thank you, but if it's all like, it says, and this is, does anyone remember where this experiment was done? I don't know. It was done in Yale. So the Yale doctor is telling you to shock someone, you're all like, they probably know what they're talking about, it's Yale. But if it's, but what if I can see Ryan? Like, it's a glass, if I can see that, yeah, I probably wouldn't, like, I would not submit to authority if I can see the physical pain. But if he's like in a completely different room.
Can't they see?
No.
So
They took the experiment several different times. One of them was like they were in the same room. Some of them was
How do you
like,
fake it that well?
I don't know. Academy Award goes to. Or if there was a glass partition, there was ones where it's all like she's wearing a white lab coat and there's one where she's not. There's also ones where it's like, I'm not doing the shocking. I'm telling, and there's a test question at the very first test for social psychology where most people got it wrong. It was all like, which one will make sure that they will definitely conform, or not conform, be most obedient. And it's like, if the person, if the participant is instructing someone else to do the shock. It's all like, I'm not doing the shock. All I'm doing is telling Gianna to shock Brian. And if she does it, that's on her. But I'm just telling her, I mean, it's not a big deal, I'm just a middleman. And so, like, the more removed I am from him, the more likely I'm going to, like, be obedient. But if I could see him, if I'm in the room with him, I'm probably not. Oh, and if she's far away, so, like, the closer I am to him, the less likely I'm going to obey her. The closer I am to Gracie, the more likely I'm going to obey. And the further away I am, maybe not physically, but like middleman-wise, I'm telling, like she's telling me to tell Gianna to tell like Clara to shock him. That's like so many people in the middle that I'm not even basically a part of it anymore. So then you're really gonna shock.
Do the people in the middle get to make it easy?
What do you mean? Like this person's in on it?
Like you tell Gianna, does Gianna get to make a decision?
No, because she's in on it. She's gonna do whatever I say. It's on me. The test is on me.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I was using this door. It started at like 15 volts. It went all the way to like 450. And 65 to 66% of people, it says 2/3. So I don't know if we're like rounding up or rounding down. Went all the way to the end. Okay. Let's talk about love. Things that will increase your love. What's a mere exposure effect? Just being around them, just the mere exposure will make you love someone more than not at all.
Oh, it's above, it's like relating. It's like passionate loving.
Oh, yeah. But what does say mere exposure?
No, it doesn't say that.
Oh, it does.
Oh, it's
Well, it's like, it's on number 2.
Well,
It just says, whatever. It says the more we're exposed to something, more we're likely to like it. We become attracted to the famous experts and physically attractive. Also, we need to be have similarities. What's the number one thing that causes us to be attracted to people? Yeah, that's the first thing. Before you ask them like, what's your favorite hobby? You see them, so that's the very first thing. And that's not even just for love. That's for like friendship as well. Like, most of you think your friends are probably more attractive than they actually are. Just because you like them, and so liking someone makes them more attractive. Right?
I mean, yeah.
Like, none of you in here think like, I have a friend, and my God, they are hideous.
Well, I mean, you.
All my friends are ugly.
Isn't there something where you pick your friends that also make you feel good about yourself too? You know what I mean?
Okay, as in, not like I'm not gonna pick ugly friends just so I feel better.
No, I'm not saying that. And there's like a thing, and I read this somewhere when I was like studying. It's like you, it's like in your subconscious. Yes, so you feel bigger than them. You know what I mean? Like you feel like you're better than them in some way. So
I feel like I'm
never like less than. I don't know.
I don't know. Barbara, wait a minute. Okay, move on. Okay, so there's passion, love, and companion love. Passion, love, faith. Companion, love, says forever. Moving on. Aggression. Things that cause us to be aggressive. Hormones, like testosterone, heat. Also, where is aggression? Yes, the aggression hypothesis, that it's like when we feel frustrated, we're more likely to be aggressive. But my God, doesn't that just make sense? It's just, yeah. Oh, wow, you're clever. It's just, none of y'all in my first period because this meant you go class. But yesterday I had some really difficult moments with the smart board, and at one point I slammed my head against it. Because I had to calibrate it, I want to say 10 times, and then the markers were all over the place, and then that thing was like, cannot compute. And I'm like, oh my god, and so that's why my markers look like this.
Oh my god.
See how it's smashed? You're like, that's every day. I've been in this room for like 8 years, and all of it like this, we smash at the end. That's frustration, aggression, and aggression, remember, is the intent to destroy or to harm. Oh no, that's my second set. I've been switching them with
You
you.
know, you like switch people?
Oh, my husband, because he doesn't use it, like,
He doesn't want to do like the whole, he thinks that they extend the line, he's gonna lose his head. It's the whole, you know how like,
Yeah.
because I can lose my head. That was weird. Like, someone's hurt the way. What is it?
Oh, yeah. So what are some other influences? Oh, we have testosterone, alcohol, frustration, aggression. Oh, media violence. Monkey see, monkey do. What am I talking about? Yeah, manner of overall. And that was seeing aggression causes people to be more aggressive. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
We have to know all the different kinds of we can just, I mean,
It would be like, which of the following would not increase aggression?
Alcohol.
Right. Or am I saying like more estrogen? So like more estrogen is not going to be causing you to be more aggressive.
These people produce a level of testosterone.
Yes.
And would you say, like, let's say bodybuilders, they produce more testosterone?
Yes. The act of kind of like acting like a guy in terms of like bodybuilding, even being more aggressive will cause you to make more testosterone. Plus, if you're a bodybuilder, probably doing steroids. So that's also testosterone in itself. Okay, so how do you reduce aggression? Subordinate goals. Yes, this is like, if you really need to stop conflict, give an assignment for these 2 or 3 people to work together on.
Or did you say you did that with like 2 people that you kind of like, they liked each other, but they wouldn't talk?
No, that was actually like, I kept them apart, which was stupid of me. I really should have like, I don't know, put them together to work on something, even though that happened completely by accident. So I'm trying to look for the purpose. And then,
I mean, if you think about it, your first thought wouldn't be, oh, I'm going to put 2 people together that don't like each other.
right, I was trying to help, but what I should have done, because it's something bigger than them, it was the mock test, the second, like the taking it together, and so they had to work together for 2 days. So it could be like other things, like, hey, racist football team, like remember the Titans? Don't worry about your racist conflict, worry about winning a football game. So you give them something that's bigger than their fights. Conciliatory acts basically means there's a better word for that. Conciliatory acts is put-ups. Does anyone see?
Oh, I was just writing. Oh, it's on 9. Is it subordinate?
Yes.
That's different.
What?
Number 9 is
Yeah, well, that's the question. I mean, it's not like the question, but it's conflict. And then communication, obviously, we talked about it. Okay, let's take a little quiz and then we're done for the day. Look at this. Does anyone want me to talk about anything else? I guess there's in-group bias, stereotype prejudice, discrimination, just wall phenomena, but I feel like those are all kind of make sense.
Cooperation, coordination, communication,
What else? Is there anything else that you want to talk about on here? Okay. Okay, we're not going to do all of these questions, but we'll just do some of them. All students, Mr. Moffat overheard an teacher describe one of his students as lazy and unmotivated. Though Mr. Moffat had not previously noted this tendency, he began to see exactly what the other teacher had noted. What might account for this phenomenon? Self-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah. Or when someone says something about someone else, and it kind of fulfills its prophecy. Like, there's no way I'm going to do well on the test. What's the point of studying? You don't study, you don't do well. Well, I was right the whole time. Look, I failed. Like, yeah, you didn't study because you didn't, because you thought you should. Oh my God. Okay, some difficult cuts needed to be made in the school board budget, and everyone on the board knew that there had to be consensus and cooperation. Yeah. I had to read the rest. Okay. A young woman was gunned down in a gas station. A busload of onlookers saw the entire event and no one said anything. Okay, what else could have been right? What's altruism?
Oh,
You did it
good,
because-
like, good.
Yes, it is,
Good without affecting anything.
yes, it's an unsolved good deed.
Oh my God.
You read in the newspaper that survivors in a plane accident in the 80s were discovered to have eaten other survivors during their 32-day ordeal. True story. You have committed the fundamental attribution error if you attribute a behavior to its So a fundamental attribution error is when you say, well, like, if there are bad people, forget the environment that they're in.
Yeah.
And yes.
So you're forgetting the environment.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Ethnocentrism is the belief that. Oh my gosh.
No, imagine trying to do we were doing that practice test using my group. He would literally have the answer for the second. I wouldn't even done the question.
But whenever we do like practice tests or whatever, so whoever my partners will always be like, oh, it's C. I was like, I haven't even read the first sentence of the question yet.
Right. Like, which number are we on?
Yes.
Is when own culture is superior to others. USA.
No one say anything.
The effect of one confederate, which is typically the actor in an experiment, an actor, selecting a different line from the others in Asch's conformity test was. The effect of one confederate selecting a different line from the others was what?
Oh, okay. I think you're good.
We're all going to say it out loud. At the same time. Oh, you. Okay. I'm going to drink some water to allow you to think.
Let's go. There's too many words.
So, that basically means we're all going around, and it's all like corn, 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 corn. And this is on Andrea. She's the person that's not enough. But then Gabby's all like carrots. Shell's like carrots.
Oh, you're following with carrots.
Yeah, I remember it's yours.
No, but you also said that like you're like a week whenever you were like carrots.
Oh no! Carrots.
Okay, but
Carrots.
one.
D.
D.
D. D.
That's what I was gonna say. I was
Oh
gonna
my
say
God.
it was actually.
Yeah.
Is it actually D?
Yeah.
Okay.
She has always hated the color orange. However, once she became a student at Princeton, she began to wear a lot of orange Princeton Tiger clothing. The discomfort caused by her long-standing dislike of the color orange and her short ownership was known as.
She was just complaining about it.
It said
Discomfort.
discomfort.
It does say discomfort.
I know, but I need to read all the questions.
There's only one.
Just read like the big
You
words.
just
You get
your
basic-
brain is like keyword.
Of the following, which would be a good example of self-serving bias for reading in our head now? Self-serving bias. Are we ready?
Okay, it was either D or D. I did.
Okay. If he bumps test even though he goes gets an A, that is not self-serving. If he's like, I deserved an A,
Wait, I thought self-serving was like
taking like credit for your successes but not your failures, or saying the reason I'm so well, forget about the environment that you're in. It's
what you're
mine.
focusing on.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Blank is an unjustified mental attitude, and blank is to justify negative behavior. So the first one would be an attitude, the second word would be a behavior.
Ready, one? Okay, B.
B. Discrimination is behavior. Yay. Which of the following is not a key determinant in whether or not two people will become friends? They're all going to contribute them being friends except for one of them. Oh my
I
god!
did what happened.
Nah.
It's like being repelled kids in a crowd.
Yeah, probably less likely to be
Yeah,
friends.
like opposing isn't gonna help you
Yeah.
be friends.
Hey, we have nothing in common. That's friends forever. Okay.
It's a trap.
No, they don't. So thing refers to
Oh,
I didn't even read. I didn't even actually read.
B, a reduction by effort of individuals when they work in a
I was
group.
looking for group. Oh, they all say group.
They do all say group.
You're the center of the potato.
Here and
Okay, thank you.
on Monday, Tanya asked her teacher to postpone Tuesday's test until Friday. Shut up! Oh my god!
Dude, I hate you.
Ow!
I actually want to hate you.
That's a door in the face, you dummy. Okay.
Actually.
Her teacher flatly refused. Reminded and asked, oh, you said that's something big? Okay, that's one thing. Hey, a group that one belongs to and identifies with is known as a group that you identify to and belong to.
You're in the group.
You are in the group.
It's in the group.
Oh, okay. Which of the following is not considered one of the basic elements of persuasion process?
I don't know this.
Yeah, listen.
If I'm gonna guess,
What's a channel?
I was gonna say channel too.
I
Because
mean,
it doesn't.
no, I say.
I'll just say channel.
Where's the channel?
Oh,
Because channel is like how you.
No, because everything else kind of makes sense. Like the source, where you're getting it from, who's receiving it, and the intent. No, it's C. It's C.
Oh.
Okay.
Why?
So the channel is how you communicate. Source, receiver, how you communicate. Like what's needed for persuasion. But intensity.
Well, like, Malcolm X is a really intense person, and I'm more likely to believe him than
I think it's Martin Luther King.
maybe.
No.
But there are plenty of people that went over.
Yes, but it's like saying that someone that yells louder is automatically like right and will persuade more people.
I
The
say
intensity
somebody
sometimes is all like no.
Well, couldn't it just be like going
Or fine. Like it's hard for me. I don't hear. I don't just
No, that's not.
We're done. By the way. That was it. 15. I mean, it doesn't matter. It was me. Whatever. Perfect. Have a great afternoon. I am turning this off right now.